You can't afford Sydney property. We are hearing it all over the place. We're here to tell you you can. Stay tuned. We're going to give you some cold, hard, good facts.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Bergio, Mark Novak. Thinking you can't afford Sydney property. We're hearing it more and more, especially at the moment with the surging house prices. More buyers are looking for alternative suburbs, regions, and even states. For example, a lot of Sydney buyers saying maybe I should buy in Queensland, maybe I should look at WA, South Australia, and Melbourne, because I can't even get a house for $1 million. But I think especially when people need to stop looking at not what they're buying as is and judging it by, it's a unit, it's not what I want, it's a house. When it comes to an investment, obviously it's very different criteria. If you're looking to buy something to live in, buy something to potentially live in, compared to I want to create wealth through property, and I have $1 million, I have $500,000. It's almost like people pick the type of property rather than just finding something that works for $500,000. So when someone says I've got $1 million to spend, but I want a house, rather than looking at the numbers, they go, well, I can't buy a house in Northern Beaches, I'm going to go to Queensland, when they should be going, well, there's a reason you wanted to buy a house in Northern Beaches. Maybe it's got great growth, for example. Then why don't you look at something else like a unit? $1 million in property is $1 million in property. But it's almost like, Mark, when they can't get what they think they want for maybe the wrong reasons, house sounds good, but it's an investment, then they just sort of throw out what they've always thought, especially if they've always been buying. We hear it quite often. I know you had a client before. They've always been buying DY in the uplift, buying again with the equity, but it's almost like they can't buy the house. They're going to change their whole buying pattern to go buy in Queensland when they could just buy something else for $1 million. What's your thoughts?
Quality. I think quality will always be quality, and just because something's got two arms and two legs, it doesn't mean it's got a brain in it. And I think when it comes to property, the quality principles of Sydney, Australia are always going to be there and have always been there. So I think that you can't be a lot of people just chasing the house, the big house or the new house, and they are sacrificing quality. I think, is that going to stand the test of time? People really underestimate their tribe. People really underestimate, mum, dad, brother, sister, cousins, school buddies, people they've spent 20, 30 years building a tribe around and with, and being part of a tribe, and people being part of your tribe. I think that when they go to buy a property, they don't realise they abandon that. They abandon roots for work, schooling, education, friends, family. So you really got to have a long, hard think about it.
Yeah, and I think what people should look at is, because where we're going with where people make the jump, they're like, I want to buy the house, but now I can't get it for the money, so I'm going to go buy that house I've thought I want in DY in Gold Coast, but the visuals is great. Like, you buy the house, but what's the capital growth you're sacrificing for the visual? It'd almost be like you go for a pretty girl with a shit personality. That's like when someone says, well, I want the house, but I can't afford it, so I'm going to go buy the house in a different area, and it may not have the backing. So, for example, DY, you may go, $1 million gets me an apartment. It will have 10% growth, 4% yield, very low vacancy. Then you may look at Queensland, for example, it may only have 3% capital growth, 6% rental return, which is great, but you may be looking for equity. And it's like, well, if you didn't know which either was, you didn't know what type of property it was, you just looked at the figures, you go, well, that's what I'm searching for in my investment. And then once you've made your pick, it's almost like they pull the curtains back and go, but it's an apartment. Like, oh no, I want a house. Oh, okay, I'll go Queensland. So we see a lot of people wrestle with themselves on either like almost thinking they can't or it's below them to buy an apartment. There is that bad stigma or sentiment that people want houses, which I think is the roots of the old school saying was like buy land, own it that way. But with how pricing is so expensive, especially Sydney, and Luke says it's just going to keep going up. It's almost like it's basically buy the worst, you know that saying, buy the worst house on the best street. Even if you take that mindset, buy that mindset, but stay in Sydney, stay Northern Beaches. If that's where you've always been, you've been successful.
It's one of the golden rules.
Yeah. Where people try and flip that and they go, I want to buy the best house in the worst street, which I'm not saying Queensland is, but that's what people almost make that shift. And I think that's where it stems, because you had a conversation with someone the other day. Talk us through that. You're saying it off air.
Yeah, so I had a great young guy. I was helping out a little bit with some in the coffee business, and yesterday, and he was saying, "Mate, what do you reckon? Should I go to Melbourne or should I go to Queensland?" I'm like, "What for?" He's like, "Got 50 G's, full-time job, can't afford here." I'm like, "What do you mean you can't afford here with 50? Can't afford it." So before he's even started on the journey of looking for a property or talking to a broker, he's got the disposition that he can't actually afford Sydney. And I said, "Mate, we just sold in Brookvale, borderline Allambie, for 535 grand, a unit that is rented for 400 a week." I said, "You need a deposit of 27 grand, 28 grand to buy that, and you don't have to pay stamp duty." He said, "But I've got 50, I've got heaps more than that." I said, "That's my point. So why aren't you just buying that one bedroom, even if you're not going to live in it, and you're just going to rent it out, first home buyer, live in a short time, then rent it out, keep your cash, your powder dry with your cash?" And he's like, "Yeah, I never thought of it that way." I said, "Got to talk to a good broker, got to get your 5% loan." And there's a lot of people just, they're actually, they're not getting the principles right up front. They're just chasing the low-hanging fruit. And I think that you can't forget the whole reason why expensive is because it's expensive, like because it's good. Do you know what I mean? So the reason why something sells for premium regularly is because it's got premium principles and things about it. Are those things going to be burnt or buried or stolen? You know, what I mean by that is, because Sydney is expensive, is it going to lose that shine? Is it going to lose those principles of why, or those elements of why it's expensive? Of course not. Climatically, it's superior. You know, it's not too hot. It's not too cold. It has a beautiful harbour. Like, it's got great education. It's got the fundamentals that underpin this entire city are not being burnt, buried, or stolen. They are still there. COVID may be rewrapping stuff, but those principles of Sydney being strong are still there.
As Tulio says, sell in Sydney and you'll never get back in, and that's exactly right. And I think a lot of people like that young chap you're talking to before,
so much.
He's got 50K, and he, like, that unit, what we've seen, he can buy that now, but more than likely in a year he won't be able to buy that. And a lot of people have that disposition. It's like, no, I'm not going to buy a little one bed or a little studio. I want to buy something big. I want a 2-bedroom, but I'll buy it in an area that may not be as successful as Sydney, as Northern Beaches. So people need to stop looking at what the visuals of what they're buying, start looking at the numbers more closely. Almost, yeah. Read it out. Can't see it.
Okay, this isn't the actual exact unit. There's another one, the other one, the block that we sold. But Bird, check that out. So, all I want to say is, if you want to buy anywhere else,
160 to 500,
right?
Like it's a 997.
Yeah. If you want to buy in anywhere else, just just bear in mind, is it going to have the historic rise? And I know people are in for, that's already had its boom. I'm not going to buy in Sydney. That's already had its run. But for Christ's sake, it's done it for 100 years. So are you really that smart to get around that formula and outpace it and outsmart it for the next 5 or 10? Furthermore, the kid that I'm talking to yesterday, do you want to risk your life savings in the first move you make in your life? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I said to him. I said, if something goes wrong, I said, 1,000 reasons why DY is good. 1,000 reasons why Brookvale's good. Why would you take your life savings and go bet on a suburb anywhere else that you don't know 1,000 things about?
Yeah. And I think a good way to always so people understand that, I say to them, think of your local area. Think of, say, DY, for example. We know there's micro markets within that suburb. We know if you're on the eastern side of that road compared to the western side, you're going to get probably 5 to 10% more. But someone from the outside looking in sees two exact same units within 200 meters from each other. One sells for 900, one sells for 820. They think the 820 is a steal. Then when one comes up again, maybe closer to the inferior one, they pay 880 for it, because they look at the one on the other side of the street, which they don't know has that added value being there and that local knowledge. So I think it just comes back to buy the worst property in the best area, and that will help a lot of people through, because we don't see, when we see capital growth, we're not seeing, this year went up 20%, but it didn't go up for shitty studios. It didn't go up for shitty one-bedders. It only went up for two-bedders. No, we see it really go up for everything. Apartments are up. Houses are up.
Yeah. Okay. Now look at this comment from Luke. Just sell in Sydney to build up wealth. Buy elsewhere. Just sell Sydney. Just buy elsewhere. Okay. If you're smart. Hear what he said? Different to what you just said. You
just buy elsewhere to build up wealth. Can always get back in if you ask. Oh yeah, there's growth everywhere.
Right.
Depends whether you go.
I'll tell you the operative word. The operative word is smart. Turn that off. The operative word is smart. You got to guess. That suburb over there. You don't even have to be smart to buy in the Sydney suburb. And it's your first buy that you're going to make because it's affordable. Do you know what I mean? Like, look at Birds, look at what you've bought, look at what I've bought. Mate, there was no science in it. It just kept going because we held it a long time. And then do you really want to buy out of Sydney and speculate, sorry, Luke, this is going to have a train station, this is not, that's going to have a subdivision which is going to affect my pricing, this is not. In Sydney, you don't need to be smart, you just need to stay in it long and boom.
Well, that's the two different things. Like, most in your early property careers, you'd rather go definitely that safer option. They're almost, like I said, it's almost idiot-proof the Sydney growth. We've seen people knock the house down and sell the land for more. But Luke has great points. There are great opportunity areas, but that takes, for your first home buyer, they're not going to have that value. And generally, if that education, and a lot of the time, they're not even going to value or seek someone who does that education like yourself to pinpoint those areas. So it's like, either buy where you know where it's trusted, rather than, and that could be one or two suburbs, rather than going, well, I'm going to buy in different states and I'm not going to seek professional advice to at least target me into where to buy. You maybe someone who buys their first property now, then buys 20 years later when they've made growth, then they may want to get a bit more creative based on more knowledge. So I think, as you said, Mark, your first home buyer has to keep it simple. And I almost think they can outsmart the market by buying somewhere else without actually putting in the work. Like someone like Luke's done, 15, 20 years of work and education behind it to sort of help pinpoint which areas are better. And then like someone who's lived in an area, the same. They've done the work without knowing it. They know if that street's better than that street, that side of the road is better, or the sigmas to go along with it. So they're sort of where's Luke's on fire? Bye, be smart, just buy. But being smart's hard. So sometimes you need to keep it simple. Simple. That's the thing. Simple, buy where you know. Go hard, no safe.
Buy where you know. And guys, I think the takeaways from today is buy under your nose, buy where your tribe is, and especially when it's your first buy, don't get cocky with it. And if you want to leave your speculative purchases, because it is speculative, because you don't know their suburbs, save it for maybe your second or third purchase. But certainly for your first, we're talking about affordable. We're talking about kids that we're talking to that are saying it's too expensive to buy in our areas. It's not. Stick to a one better. Get into that, then get into a two better, then get into a house, and guess what? The last 100 years, it's doubled every 10 years. So think small and grow big fast.
You know what happens when that first home buyer tries to speculate outside, they get burnt either by a shit property manager and they're not there to manage it or look at it. Something goes wrong. Then they get annoyed. They sell the property. They don't make money. And then they don't buy property again because they've just been heartbroken and they've had a crap example. It's not to mention the capital growth, but the managing of that property. It's a big difference of it being under your nose, where you are, where your tradie friends are, all of that stuff. I've had mates sell in Melbourne because there was too much maintenance. They couldn't trust it was getting done. They couldn't get down there, and they were just like, fuck it, sell it. They burned money. So there are so many reasons just to keep it simple and buy under your nose. Your under your nose doesn't have to be DY. It may be Parramatta. Buy where you know. But that's a wrap.
Yeah.
Luke, thank you very much.
Love ya.
Cheers.
See ya. Bye, buddy.